Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind. So of course, as most of you guys probably already know, globalist entities like the WEF have been the subject of intense scrutiny and criticism as of late. I mean, if you're even remotely associated with the WEF, it's viewed as a massive red flag. Vivek Ramaswamy had some issues with this because of this simple photo right over here. After launching his campaign initially, this was widely circulated, and of course, exactly as I just mentioned, it was viewed as a massive red flag. Many people asking themselves the question, is Vivek Ramaswamy just a globalist puppet plant, saying the right things to get elected to appeal to conservative voters, only to backstab them in the back in the end? And basically the point that I'm trying to make, within the right-wing political world, anything even remotely associated with this three-letter organization is instantly viewed as toxic or caustic. Any association, of course, except for, well, this kind of association. When you associate yourself with the WEF, only to show up and absolutely excoriate everyone, put them all on notice. Now, let's just say that is the type of association with this three-letter organization that I can actually appreciate. And of course, the man to do it in this case was no other than Javier Milei, the brand new president of Argentina, known as the Argentinian Trump. This man is the gift that keeps on giving. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. Let's take a look at what's popping off on Twitter. Surprise to no one, it's Mr. Milei as per usual, whether he's shitposting memes or excoriating the WEF. He's just the guy to do it. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so finally we got the translation here. Javier Milei shows up in front of a globalist crowd, and let's just say doesn't hold his tongue.
Today I'm here to tell you that the Western world is in danger. And it is endangered because those who are supposed to have to defend the values of the West are co-opted by a vision of the world that inexorably leads to socialism and thereby to poverty. Unfortunately, in recent decades, motivated by some well-meaning individuals willing to help others, and others motivated by the wish to belong to a privileged caste, the main leaders of the Western world have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we call collectivism. We're here to tell you that collectivist experiments are never the solution to the problems that afflict the citizens of the world. Rather, they are the root cause. Do believe me, no one better placed than us, Argentines, to testify to these 2 points. The empirical evidence is unquestionable. Therefore, since there is no doubt that free enterprise capitalism is superior in productive terms, the left-wing doxa has attacked capitalism, alleging matters of morality, saying, that's what the detractors claim, that it's unjust. They say that capitalism is evil because it's individualistic, and that collectivism is good because it's altruistic, of course, with the money of others. So they therefore advocate for social justice. But this concept, which in the developed world became fashionable in recent times, in my country has been a constant in political discourse for over 80 years. The problem is that social justice is not just, and it doesn't contribute either to the general well-being. Quite on the contrary, it's an intrinsically unfair idea because it's violent. It's unjust because the state is financed through tax. And taxes are collected coercively. Or can any one of us say that they voluntarily pay taxes? Which means that the state is financed through coercion, and that the higher the tax burden, the higher the coercion, and the lower the freedom. And we are now at the best time in the history of humanity. It is worth asking why I say that the West is endangered. And I say this precisely because in those of our countries that should defend the values of the free market, private property, and the other institutions of libertarianism, sectors of the political and economic establishment, some due to mistakes in their theoretical framework and others due to a greed for power are undermining the foundations of libertarianism, opening up the doors to socialism and potentially condemning us to poverty, misery and stagnation. It should never be forgotten that socialism is always and everywhere an impoverishing phenomenon that has failed in all countries where it's been tried out. It's been a failure economically, socially, culturally, and it also murdered over 100 million human beings.
Javier Milei went to the annual meeting in Davos essentially to tell all of the globalist puppet masters that they are in fact the problem, and this sort of obsession of central planning, this obsession over this top-down linear power structure is the problem. You know, these Davos people come together and what they tell us is that they want to create systems of global governance that tackle important issues, one of them of course being poverty, yet they seem to not even have an elementary understanding of basic history, I mean recent modern history, because of course if they did have a basic understanding, they would know that the one thing that leads to poverty more than anything else is the suppression of the individual. More specifically, the suppression of an individual's ability to carve their own path and engage in their own trade. Collectivism has failed time and time and time again. Yet we have all of these world leaders, these supposed world leaders, you know, John Kerry and his ilk meeting up every single year, flying with their fancy private jets to all land in Davos so they can concoct these collectivist-style plans. But of course, what I just presented to you is more of the naive viewpoint on this issue. You know, the implication that they don't understand history and that's why they're bound to make the same mistakes, I think is the wrong way to think about this. The reality is they've studied their history. They know exactly what they're doing, and what they're seeking is oligarchy. What they're seeking is total control. And this is something that needs to be hammered home. This is why Javier Milei has to succeed in Argentina. To me personally, it's a matter of life or death. It's a matter of freedom or slavery. The globalist puppet masters are doing everything in their power to suppress man and woman, suppress the individual. They want to control what you eat, what goes into your body through various different forms. They want to control what you can say, where you can travel, what views are acceptable and what views are not. And probably the biggest threat that we face, they want to take the dignity of work away from people. It's not just the central bank digital currencies. It's not just social credit scores and, passports. I'll purposely leave that vague and leave it up to your own interpretation. It's also the technology and AI. You won't have to work anymore. Robots will do everything for you. This idea of a blissful, beautiful future where labor becomes a thing of the past. It's presented as this sort of utopian vision, but I view it personally as a freaking dystopia. Because who's going to be in control in a system like that? It's the bureaucratic globalist elite. They're vying for absolute power. We no longer live in a free market world. Leftoids love to say, well, we're living through capitalism right now, and look at how bad things are going for the average young person. But what they don't seem to understand is that the problem doesn't stem from capitalism, it stems from crony capitalism and even globalist influence. Look at what happened during the pandemic, for instance. We saw the greatest transfer of wealth probably in human history. Of course, the mom and pop shop at the corner was shut down. Jimbo wasn't allowed to sell hot dogs, but McDonald's was open for business. Stephanie's little retail store around the corner was closed for months, but Walmart and Amazon were open, hitting record levels of profits and sales, and of course, most importantly for them, increasing their corporate footprint. In other words, expanding their market share. We're heading into the age of the oligarchy. And that's thanks to who? Or rather, it's thanks to what? It's thanks to government. These big CEOs, these big company founders are becoming embedded with government. They get the special treatment. They get to buy off the politicians and continue to expand their power. Meanwhile, the little guys are becoming increasingly more and more irrelevant. They're taking our dignity away from us as they slowly monopolize entire markets. That's what we talk about when we're talking about the, quote, elites. The boards of directors who run these companies that have no allegiance to the people and they have no allegiance to the nation. They view the world as their playground. They view the world as theirs for the taking. Meanwhile, the little guy continues to get beat down further and further and further. And that's because of one thing and one thing alone. It's not capitalism, it's crony capitalism. And what is crony capitalism? It's big government. Oligarchs putting their thumbs on the scale, scheming behind the scenes, putting together plans of social control where they benefit and everybody else has to sacrifice. You notice that trend? You have to sacrifice, but the elites who dictate the standards don't sacrifice jack squat. Big government or too much power being in the hands of too few is the problem, and collectivism is the core of that problem. Because collectivism is marketed in this nationalistic kind of way, people coming together for the greater good of the country, for the greater good of humanity, but it's really, from their purview, the peasant class coming together to uplift the rulers that be. TLDR, communism is evil, and Javier Milei is a freaking badass. That's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.